have you ever wondered why the younglings from Star Wars wear helmets? It seems like nothing to most people, but there are actually a few interesting reasons why the young Jedis don their mushroom-looking helmets. And in this video, you're going to find out what those reasons are. The helmets worn by young Jedis are WJ-880 blinding helmets, and they serve several purposes and can also be connected with other helmets from the franchise. Reason 1, it helps younglings rely on the Force. The younglings' helmets have been a part of the Star Wars franchise since the very beginning. While older Jedis have more control over their powers, the inexperienced younglings needed a way to master the ways of the Force. When the young Jedis were brought to the temple for training, they had no control of their powers. So to help them hone in on their abilities, the younglings were given the WJ-880, a helmet big enough to cover their eyes and dim their other senses, which allowed the younglings to master Force Sense, an ability that allows Jedi to rely on the Force instead of their own sense of sight or hearing. Mastering the Force Sense allowed older Jedis to detect an incoming attack without using their eyes to see it coming. The room could be in pure darkness, but by using their Force Sense, Jedis could navigate their way through and fight whatever enemy they sense. Force Sense also gave Jedis the power of foresight, allowing them to predict attacks before their opponent had even made the move. To help the young Jedis master this ability, their Jedi Master gave them the WJ-880. This was a simple way to prepare the younglings for future battles against stronger opponents. Using the blinding helmet allowed younglings to focus on the Force and decipher what warning it was trying to give them. Even Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi once wore the WJ-880 when he was a youngling. The helmet is a staple for all young Jedis to help them fully master their abilities. For as long as the Star Wars franchise has been in existence, younglings have been using the WJ-880, up until Luke Skywalker began his academy for young Jedi. Reason 2, Yoda and Order 66. Jedi Grandmaster Yoda also used the WJ-880 blinding helmet when teaching a class of younglings long before the Clone Wars. This class of younglings was known as the Mighty Bear Clan, and they also helped Obi-Wan Kenobi in his search to find the planet of Kamino. Like other Jedi younglings, these ones started with the basic lightsaber combat training, including Shicho, which is the first form of lightsaber combat. The younglings in this class were usually anywhere from 4 to 8 years old. Sadly, the Bear Clan was likely killed by Anakin Skywalker on the night of Order 66, the night when several Jedi and Jedi younglings lost their lives. Only a few Jedi survived that night, including Reva from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. When the 5 entered Reva's classroom, she was taking Jedi lessons with her fellow younglings under the tutelage of Minas Velti. Reva was learning basic Jedi martial arts when the order was carried out. She and her classmates were also wearing the WJ-880 when the Grand Army of the Republic started firing at them. She carried the memory of that night with her all of her life, and she sometimes had waking dreams about it. Reva would often remember her classmates as they died at the hands of the clone troopers and Darth Vader wearing the WJ-880 blinding helmet. Reason 3, it's for protection. Having a bunch of kids fight blindly with swords would no doubt be dangerous, so it's obvious that another use of the WJ-880 was protection. The helmets were used to block the sense of the younglings, but this could have easily been done with a blindfold and a pair of earplugs. That means that there was a more important reason why the younglings had to wear these huge, clearly uncomfortable helmets. That reason is protection. During the training, one of the younglings might accidentally use their training saber to hurt their classmates. Unlike lightsabers used by more experienced fighters in the Star Wars franchise, youngling lightsabers could not slice through skin. However, they would definitely hurt if the youngling was trying hard enough. Training sabers also gave slight jolts, which would also hurt, but certainly not as bad as a real lightsaber. Also, you may not have noticed this, but the younglings' helmets are quite similar to the black helmets worn by the Imperial Gunners and the Death Star, which adds to the theory that they are worn for protection. Reason 4, training Luke Skywalker. Several years after the night of Order 66, Obi-Wan Kenobi came out of hiding to train Luke Skywalker. The Jedi Master had no blinding helmets to train young Luke, so instead, he used the helmet as a 295 pilot. He also placed the blast shield down. This helmet served the same purpose as the WJ-880, to cover Luke's natural senses so that he could rely on the Force and master his Force sense. Reason 5, Luke Skywalker's Jedi School. By issue 3, when Luke Skywalker started his own Jedi school for young Jedis, his students did not use the WJ-880 or any other helmet to block their senses. Amongst these students was his nephew, the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, Kylo Ren. Kylo and his classmates were never shown using a helmet in the issue. Instead, they used far less sophisticated equipment to master their Force sense. This equipment included wooden swords and stones. Luke might have felt the helmets used by the younglings long ago did more harm than good. The helmets, along with some other old ways of the Jedi Order, constantly made everything so complicated. This not only affected the young Jedi, it also affected the whole galaxy. Luke created an alternative way to train his students in a way that was simple and allowed the young Jedi to connect with the Force without having their senses blocked. Jedi Luke and Luke from the Legends have some similarities in that regard. They both felt the Jedi Order had a few flaws that they sought to correct in the new age they were creating. Another way Luke from the Legends differed from most Jedis was in his belief about attachments. This Luke Skywalker thought that having attachments was not as wrong as the Jedi Order made it out to be. In his opinion, it was controlling yourself when you had attachments that made you a true Jedi, not completely abstaining from attachments altogether. And if you think about it, he's right, because is it really a test of strength if Jedis never actually allowed themselves to have attachments? Isn't the true test of a Jedi strength his ability to have those attachments but maintain control? It would be great to see Luke train his students in the way of the Force using a helmet similar to the ones used in the earlier days of the Jedi Order, or like the one Obi-Wan Kenobi used when he trained Luke. It would have shown that the Jedi Order still held on to its original ways, but that wouldn't be true because it had changed a lot since the night of Order 66. Luke taught his students in a new way, one he believed was better than the old way of the Jedi, a method of teaching that he felt would help young Jedi connect with the Force better. Another great possibility is the presence of Force ghosts while Luke is training his students. These Force ghosts could be the ghosts of Yoda, Anakin, or Qui-Gon Jinn, all standing around and trying to train the young Jedi in their own way. They could be teaching the future Jedi Knights how to see the future while Luke trains them to use lightsabers. It would be a good way to show how connected to the Force Luke's students were. If they were able to detect the presence of the Force ghosts, that would show that they were close to mastering the ways of the Force. It would also show how the different Jedi Masters would teach their students in their own unique ways. Luke with his modern way of doing things, and older Jedi Masters like Yoda and Qui-Gon also doing things their own way. It would be a great way to measure the teaching ability of each master to discover which one of them had it right in their way of teaching. All of these masters are great at what they do, but which one of them would be able to pass on that knowledge the best? The answer to that question would only be found if the Star Wars franchise explored that side of the Force Ghost story. The possibility of the Star Wars franchise going down this route and showing fans what Luke's class would look like with the influence of the Force Ghost is an intriguing one.